President Trump appealed to a lot of Americans during his campaign on free speech arguments and not suppressing speech, especially from the government. But your revocation of the green card, to many, is seen as one of the most anti-speech actions a secretary could take with his powers. How do you respond?
Yeah, when you enter this is an important point, and I'm glad you asked this question. When you come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, as on a visitor's visa, okay, you are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities, I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card as a result of that visa while you're here in those activities, we're going to kick you out. It's as simple as that. This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with. No one has a right to a student visa. No one has a right to a green card, by the way. So when you apply for a student visa, or any visa to enter the United States, we have a right to deny you for virtually any reason. But I think being a supporter of Hamas and coming into our universities and turning them upside down and being complicit in what are clearly crimes of vandalization, complicit in shutting down learning institutions. There are kids at these schools that can't go to class. You pay all this money to these high-priced schools that are supposed to be of great esteem, and you can't even go to class. You're afraid to go to class because these lunatics are running around with covers on their face, screaming terrifying things. If you told us that's what you intended to do when you came to America, we would have never let you in. And if you do it once you get in, we're going to revoke it and kick you out.
Yeah, baby. It's episode 25, our first milestone. Episode 25 of The Whiners on March 13th, 2025. Jeff Norman with Ryan Milton, as always, and Jose Vega is joining us, as he often does today.
Howdy.
And we'll be hey, Jose, congratulations to us, and thanks for celebrating with us. What are you drinking?
Of course.
Today, Jose?
I was peer pressured into getting this Maha bottle.
Peer pressured.
You know.
Is that Maha wine?
No, it's just a Maha water bottle I got at the RFK goodbye party thing he had in Washington, D.C., which happened to coincide with the hearings that were happening in D.C. So it's filled. There's liquid in there, as you can hear, and it's filled with whatever you want it to be filled with.
Okay, well, that's some pretty intense peer pressure you succumd to. I hope you can cope.
He was talking about Maha, actually, and think about they're using beef tallow now in some more of the fast food places, and it also works very nicely on your skin. I did beef tallow on my face. And what I'm drinking for my wine is this Dave Harvey Syrah, and it's a Columbia Valley Syrah, so that's Washington State. And actually, this one is, again, it's from Naked Wine, so it's part of that kit. I think it's the last bottle of that kit that Samantha sent me, and it's pretty good. Got to let it air out a little, but I wanted to just say Walla Walla Washington wine. It's just got to say that. It sounds good.
Walla
All
Walla.
right. Well, I took a step backwards today. You know, I've pledged to start spending a little bit more on my wine, as you recall, and in fact, I have been doing it. But because of today's news, Trump threatening a 200% tariff on European wines, I said, well, while I have the chance, in case that actually comes to be, which I'm not betting it will, but in case it does, I wanted to get some kind of cheap European wine. And so that is exactly what I've done. It's a blend of Cabernet and Syrah, $6.49 at Trader Joe's. So that would be something like $21 around there, I guess, if you were to add a 200% tariff to it. So while I can, I'm getting it for $6.49.
Not bad, not bad.
It's the box stuff from Europe.
It's going to taste better, actually, at $21 a bottle.
Yeah, man. What about the box stuff? What'd you say?
Is that stuff imported from Europe?
That's a French wine.
No, not that. The box stuff.
Oh, is box stuff in general? I doubt it.
Well, no, you can get box wine from Australia and different places for sure.
Okay, well, that's not in Europe.
But, well, they're NATO.
Please-
they think
please
they're
answer
Europe.
Jose's
Canada thinks
questions
they're
as
Europe
asked.
too. So
All right. Don't give answers to questions that Jose didn't ask.
he
Only
was
answer
thinking it. He
what
was
did.
thinking
Oh, he was thinking
it.
it. All right.
Ryan,
Well,
Ryan read my mind.
excuse me. We opened with Marco Rubio, the United States Secretary of State, giving his position on the Mahmoud, I guess it's pronounced the Mahmoud Khalil controversy. This is a deportation case. He's a Columbia University student. And Jose, you escaped my wrath. Not that it matters. I'm sure you could have handled it, but I was all set to scold you and lump you in with the other protesters who are making bad assumptions, jumping to conclusions, not even realizing that the information we need isn't out there yet. But then I heard you on the Viva Fry podcast earlier today, and I must applaud you. Big round of applause for Jose, because he said, you mentioned that you saw Viva Fry's commentary, and that persuaded you somewhat at least. And you had a very nuanced conversation with him, and it is nuanced. Basically, the two main pieces of information needed to have a strong opinion are missing. And it's so obvious that it just blows my mind that people get so attached to their opinions without even knowing what they need to know, which is, first of all, we don't really know what Khalil did or didn't do. I mean, we've heard some things he's done, but there may be evidence that he's done other things. And also, the Trump administration has not yet gone into court to make their argument. So I don't know how you can rebut an argument that hasn't even been made yet. When Rubio is giving some sort of an argument here, but that's I won't say it's just rhetoric, but they're going to have to really focus on the pertinent laws when they go into court.
Well,
so what's your at this hour, Jose? Where are you on this issue?
I think I did have a productive conversation with Viva Fry about it earlier. I think it was mostly, and I'm glad he invited me on. I meant the things I said on the podcast with him, that I was watching him for a long time, even before he was political. And I'll make the case here that I made there, which I still think is right, which is that this is not about Mahmoud Khalil. There's a lot of, I think he is just the shrapnel. He is the frags. He caught a stray bullet, basically. This is about the fact that the United States was just exposed as negotiating with Hamas directly without Israel's involvement, and Israel had to blow that up, and they exposed that. And then Marco Rubio, who, by the way, got unanimous consent when he had to be voted in by the Senate. Almost every senator except Rand Paul voted for Marco Rubio to be Secretary of State. Very interesting. Even Bernie Sanders, who voted no on Tulsi Gabbard, voted yes on Marco Rubio. Regardless, Marco Rubio puts out a statement saying, yeah, it was a one-time thing with Hamas. And then Boiler, this guy who was one of the negotiators between the U.S. and Hamas, goes on CNN and says, we're not an Israel puppet. We are not the puppet of Israel. And then he also says those Hamas guys are kind of cool, actually, if you start just talking to them. Gone the next day. Then Tulsi Gabbard, who was going to have Colonel Davis, right? Colonel Dave, right? That's his name, Colonel Davis. She's going to have him as her number 2. And then the Jewish press, the Israeli press, comes out and just starts denouncing the guy, making the Trump administration look really bad. Like, was the Trump administration anti-Israel? Which forced the Trump administration to say, no, we are not anti-Israel. We are taking away $400 million in Columbia funding, federal funding, because we think that you guys didn't do enough to combat anti-Semitism, and that's our commitment to Israel. And then Columbia said, whoa, we didn't want to catch this stray. I'll tell you what, we'll give you a student to deport if you, which, by the way, he wasn't even a current student. was not a current.
Actually, I want to interrupt you a second here because while you're talking, I want to put this up here. Middle East Eye says that he actually worked for the British government.
I saw this.
Right, and British diplomats said that he was vetted for the process to get his job in the Conflict Stability and Security Fund for the Syria Chevening program, which is a U.S. government program. I'm sorry, U.K. government program. So he was working on behalf of the British government at one time. So my question was, and what you're saying is interesting, but what's a guy who should be maybe, if he's engaging in political activity, isn't that the whole point about registering as an agent of a foreign government then? Isn't that also possible in terms of what's going on here?
Look, do I claim to know? No, I don't. What I do claim to know is that there's a lot of hypocrisy amongst the conservative types. I don't know if you guys saw, but I went viral on X recently because I posted a clip by Ben Shapiro that's 7 years old, but I said it was delivered to the Congress in defense of Mahmoud Khalili. Did you guys see this?
No.
Oh, wow. It has a million
Let me
views
just
now.
follow up on what you said before. Is it significant that he's a graduate as opposed to a student? And why was he living in Columbia housing if he's a graduate? Or is that something that happens with graduates?
Well, I think he was a postgraduate student, so he was probably getting a doctoral or something.
Oh, so he was a student. Okay.
So
It's different, I think. He's not like an undergrad student, though, is the point.
But I don't think that, I mean, maybe I'm missing something. I don't think that's relevant to the story.
but I don't think any of it's relevant. Like, it's not about him is my point. It's that like the United States needs to throw a bone.
You're giving your theory about what's going on and what motivated and so forth, which is fine. But let's not ignore the big hubbub that's going on. I don't think that all these demonstrations are made up of people who have this or even aware of this very nuanced analysis you just presented. These are people who are,
but no, the point is people are being.
You come on here as an activist who, not only is an activist, but who gives guidance to folks who are would-be activists in the making and so forth. So I'm not blaming you. I'm interested in your opinion about what's going on. Because I have a theory that immigration, or let's call them pro-immigration activists, are clueless. And this goes back, it doesn't mean I'm against like their sentiment necessarily, but this goes back to when Trump first ran for president and he started going on about the wall. And the pro-immigration activists got outraged and felt like they needed to argue about that, which I thought was silly because it wasn't even a new concept. We, for years, have restricted access with a combination of electronic surveillance and armed agents and physical barriers. So Trump was merely saying, well, one of these three methods, the physical barriers, needs some maintenance. Now, I know he used some very inflammatory rhetoric, and that's probably what pissed people off. But I think that these activists would have been smarter to just say, okay, fine, put up a wall, do whatever is necessary, and use the opportunity instead to turn it towards who gets into the country, for what reason, what are conditions like when they get in, so forth and so on. This is what really matters.
Well, there is something else to that, what you're saying, Jeff, which is the whole H-1B visa thing. Because again, this is on one level, this is about visa, what happens with somebody with a visa. And if you look at the
green card.
But he came in originally as on a visa that was a tourist visa, and then it became a student visa and green card. That's how he got here. If I'm reading these articles correctly. And you have a lot of people coming in under various visas that are also replacing Americans in jobs, and that's being used by corporations. So here in one case, what Jeff was showing with these protests that we were just looking at, is these people are protesting what you're saying is, the immigration thing, but it seems like there is something else going on.
The First Amendment.
First Amendment.
Yeah, and
which a green card person doesn't necessarily have.
Green card holders are deportable, and it's based on immigration. The case will hinge on immigration law. So it's like, if somebody is charged with, let's say, defamation, you don't get out of defamation by just screaming about the First Amendment, because defamation is an exception. So a defamation case would hinge on whether or not it was actually defamatory. Likewise, in this case, what?
Well, go ahead. I don't want to cut you
Well,
off.
so likewise, in this case, it hinges on whether or not, what the Trump administration's argument is, and whether or not they're interpreting the law correctly, and what's the evidence. You can't make that go away by ignoring it and just screaming about the First Amendment.
But my point is that, like, it doesn't matter what the immigration law is. They're not going after him because, they're trying to uphold immigration law. They're going after him because they're trying to appease Israel. That's the scandal here. The scandal here is that
we can talk about that, but I disagree that it doesn't matter. Both matter, because that's what's going to determine the gentleman's fate.
Yes, but no, but like that. See, like, none of this would be happening right now if, and I made this argument before. Also, in like 20 seconds, I'm going to have to just replace the battery on my camera. But let me make this
Good
point.
timing. Good timing.
But like in this, sorry, it said full. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I made this argument a few days ago. None of this would be happening right now if the progressives in Congress, who we thought were tough, had actually broken with the Democratic Party. Instead of endorsing Kamala Harris, if people like AOC, Ed Bowman, and Ilhan Omar and Cori Bush had just made a big deal about the fact that Israel has this big, exertion of power over our country, right? And that our real president, Netanyahu, has unconstitutional, too much authority over what we decide, what we do and don't do. If they had just made a big deal about that, I honestly think the influence of a foreign country dictating the actions we take and who we persecute would not be happening right now. We would not see Mahmoud Khalil be arrested right now. We just wouldn't.
Right. So I'm not at odds with you. It sounds like you agree with me in a sense, but don't want to say it that way. Instead, you're saying it doesn't matter. I'm saying that it would make sense for people who care about this to frame it correctly. and so you are, in your opinion, framing it correctly, and you probably are. But I think it's quite relevant to mention that others are not.
That the protesters are not. Yeah, Jose, that's what he's saying. He's saying that the protesters are saying it's about free speech, which actually somebody in his case doesn't actually have. Because he's not
in free speech as a fundamental principle, whether you're born in North Korea or here in the United States.
See, notice what you just said. Notice what you just said. We're saying that we don't think the case hinges on that.
Wait. Just hold on.
Oh my God.
He's treating it. He's acting like this is a Zoom meeting with his relatives instead of a professional podcast.
I have to change my battery. Go ahead.
Of course. I mean, who wouldn't?
I'm here. I'm listening.
All right. So what I was saying is, our simple point, I think I can say it sounds like you're agreeing with me now, Ryan, is that it hinges on immigration law. And then you come back with, so you don't care about free speech.
Well,
now that I've repeated what you just said, do you see how unreasonable your response is?
How unreasonable my response is? No, yeah, I don't think so at all, because like it's absurd that.
How does an analysis of what is the most salient factor in a legal matter an indication that we don't believe in free speech?
I think trying to make this into an immigration issue completely curves what this is actually about. I just told you that this is about the fact that the United States is getting exposed for trying to subvert the influence that Israel has over it. And now it has to throw a bone to the parties that want to keep that exertion of power over it.
Well, wait a second. The idea that there would be a fight to try to keep the U.S. in a traditional pro-Israel, pro-AIPAC, whatever you want to say, position is definitely there. And the fact that the Trump administration was positively negotiating with Hamas is something that would piss them off. Absolutely, I get that. And that absolutely does make sense. But it also is the case that it's not free speech in his case because of American laws. Look, I can say this. I'm for everybody having the right to free speech. The Germans say they're all for free speech, but they arrest anybody who says something that is, against the law, especially when it, revolves around Russia. So, or you have to take an oath to Israel in Germany to become a citizen of Germany now, if you're naturalizing over there. Okay, but here, and this is very simple, in the United States, you don't have that right to free speech. It's not technically about Israel in those technicalities, and that's how they would get him. And that is the thing about that. And then again, I'm looking at a number of other things. I do find it interesting. He was vetted by the British government. He worked for the British government.
Well, I believe it was said in our Declaration of Independence that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government. I find it hard to believe that a country that is founded on revolution, a country that was founded on dissidence, can persecute somebody for being critical of its foreign policy. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
I just take exception to you saying, what's the matter with us for bringing up this other aspect when we have you on and give you the opportunity to make your argument. And not only that, but more or less agree with it.
Actually, let's put it this way.
Yeah, and then you're saying, how dare you mention some legal reasoning about a legal case?
Yeah, because the law can be bent in any way to go after anyone. In fact, since
you're all about strategy. What are you going to do about it? You should that's what I'm saying. You need to get other people on board to frame it as a political issue, then not a legal issue. But let me just answer your Bronx neighbor Stefan's question. It's not exactly superseding. It's an exception to the Constitution. At least so far, that is how courts have ruled. So, if there's some argument that the exception is unconstitutional, then that can be made. But it exists. I mean, this isn't the first time. I can't off the top of my head cite the cases, and I don't think it's been litigated a lot, but I think at least a couple or so times this particular interpretation has been upheld.
Do you think because the law is there, it's right?
That's a different question.
I think that it's
relevant.
relevant.
It's not a different question. You keep bringing it up because you're like, well, this is the law.
Well,
the law says,
Jose.
No, but
Jose.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's relevant. You're distorting what I'm saying.
So you think? Well, what do you think? Do you think Mahmoud should be deported?
I think I don't have much of an opinion until the information we need is known.
So you agree that he was persecuted for having an opinion that was critical of both this country and Israel, and therefore we have to see whether or not he could be deported.
Well, actually, we don't know if the Trump administration has any additional evidence about why they want to deport him.
Well, let's say they do. What would count as?
Well, then I'll have my opinion. Then I'll have my opinion.
What would that count? Like, let's say he came out, even though I haven't seen any of this, he just said, "I love Hamas." Would that count to deport him?
I don't think so, but I don't know
that's a good question.
Why you want me to go over hypotheticals.
Well, but just think about the language that they're using in the law books to say that they can deport somebody. It's like, well, if this subverts our national interest or is against, our foreign policy, what the fuck does that mean?
No, you're right. You're right. It's vague, and I'm all for clarity. I think there's a need for clarity so that there's not, because it's chilling free speech. I agree. It's chilling free speech. But where I strongly disagree is that you think, there's something wrong with talking about the legal fight. That is what is going to impact people's lives, how the courts rule on it.
Yeah, but it's a political issue at the end of the day, because the legal side of it is to distract you from the fact that Israel is trying to exert its influence over the United States. And the
possibly.
fact No, not
Possibly so. Yeah.
No, not possibly. Come on, Donald
Alicia,
Trump.
you
comes and
can
he
feel
pushes
free to be specific, Alicia, instead of
Yeah.
making
Call
that vague
Alicia. You should
announcement.
call in.
Donald
Yeah,
Trump.
call.
Oh, thank you, Alicia. I'm glad I have some backup here. You know,
But,
like
see, again, he doesn't like reasoning. I'm for reasoning.
No. Hold on, Jose. I don't disagree with you that there's a fight around which way the administration's going to go on everything, and I expect the administration is going to be hit on every front because they say they're going to try to break out of the mold. They're going to get hit, and they do have a problem on this particular issue of Israel. Now, in 1945, there was a Supreme Court case, Bridges versus Wixon, in which there was a labor organizer who was an immigrant who was accused of being a member of the Communist Party, which he denied. And he was essentially, in the fight, able to stay in the country and not be deported because the majority opinion said that freedom of speech in the press is accorded aliens residing in the country.
thank you, Judge Nat.
But what I just did was the Supreme Court case, which
announcements.
agrees with you, by the way.
More announcements about agreeing and disagreeing as opposed to getting into
I don't know.
reasoning.
We should ask what Morgan thinks. I see she's in the backstage. She has a lot of
Oh,
opinions.
she
about
already?
it.
Morgan, join us.
Oh, I didn't-
Bringing Morgan on. I'm bringing Morgan on. Jeff.
Hi.
Morgan, hopefully
I was just listening. I was,
Morgan, who do you agree with? Go ahead.
hopefully, yeah, he wants an
wait.
announcement. He was taking votes on agreeing. I'm trying to encourage people to explain why they feel how they feel.
well, I mean, I think that Jose does have the correct points that the whole argument of talking legality on this is kind of defeats the purpose on what's really going on, which is Israel subverting its power on basically, I guess you could say the Adelsons on what they wanted, which is just, silence the Palestinian voice. I mean, you have a person here who was a legal resident who did everything by the book. And in America, we reserve the right to, first and foremost, be critical of our politicians and our government. And now they're saying you can't even be critical of another government. So this is, I mean, that's what I find the most alarming thing. That should be the one thing that really.
Well, that is a very good point there to me.
Well, except that she's yet another person who's ignoring that green card holders don't have the same rights as citizens. At least it appears to be the case.
Wait. Well, hold on a second. So yes and no. Now I'm getting swayed a little bit here. So yes, I do agree with you, Jeff. Green card holders do not have those rights in the United States about the United States. But what Morgan said is it's not even that he's necessarily I don't know. I didn't see the specifics. He's not criticizing the U.S. policy. He's criticizing Israel's policy about Palestine. And of course, Israel's not part of the United States.
So what does that have to
In
do
other
with
words, it doesn't matter in that sense, is what I'm saying.
Frankly, I think
Being
we should
critical of another state about another state, it's like saying if you attack Antarctica for wanting to go to war with, the Arctic Circle or something
doesn't
like
matter
that.
to who or when you say
Doesn't
it
matter.
doesn't
It doesn't affect the state of the U.S. at all. Antarctica. I mean, it does actually in terms of policy.
Well, we
but
don't know which
Israel.
which of his utterances might come into play.
I don't know. I don't know.
Frankly, oh, you keep showing this law. Frankly, I think we should expedite the citizenship for Mahmoud Khalil for being the most patriotic person, for correcting and calling out the wrongs of the country he's trying to be a citizen for. We are aiding and abetting a genocide, and any American who speaks out and calls it out should be lauded as a hero.
He's
for
not
coming
an
out
American,
against,
though.
Well, he's trying to be, damn it, and that's enough in my book.
I mean, I think that is
I didn't
American,
know
though.
that.
It is to really speak your mind. And
Exactly.
everything that I've seen from Khalil, it's not even any kind of radical position. He's been on the record saying that both Israel's sovereignty and Palestinian sovereignty goes hand in hand. He was a mediator.
Look, here's the problem, though. Here's the problem. You have assholes like, what's his name, Asland in, Europe, who says, also Lindsey Graham, and there's a number of others. I'm missing it. I saw it on X, where they were saying, if Russia's allowed to take Ukraine, that's a threat to the United States. Well, that's not true. Even Donald Trump said it's not true. We've got oceans. So then who was the asshole? Oh, yeah, it was Zelensky who said, well, those oceans might not protect you. It's about outside. It's not about the United States directly. It is from the standpoint that Jose is saying, in terms of the control of AIPAC, et cetera, of the American political system. Yes. But when you're talking about these states, it's not. It's not.
What?
It.
Did I miss your
I
point?
don't know. We don't know what the speech in question is yet.
I don't
Ryan
know
has this
what
very
they're
definite-
saying, what they're claiming, what is
it's-
being claimed about, again,
Well,
free speech or American
The
citizens.
government
But
hasn't
this-
claimed anything yet.
This is why Viva Frei had me on, because Viva Frei puts out, can somebody in this thread please point to me something, a video, a statement, something that Mahmoud Khalil said to justify kidnapping him to Louisiana? And you would think that if they were going to do something like this, the Trump administration would be ready with receipts, would be ready with documentation. Like, we have proof that this guy was sending Hamas 50,000 tons of bombs. Oh, that was us, the government. Sorry, not him. That he was sending all kinds of things and aid and stuff, but they didn't have that. And then the only person who responded with something that he said was me, which was what Morgan just quoted about the Palestinian struggle and the Jewish struggle being one struggle. And that's why Viva Frei had me on to talk
Right. Well,
about
do you think that I'm saying, because it sounds like you have no beef with Viva Frei, but you do with me. But as I see it, I'm saying,
Viva
I'm
Frei
saying, I'm saying essentially the same thing as Viva Frei. But Viva Frei, by the way, is a Canadian legal expert who now lives in the U.S. and he has a great podcast. But I'm saying essentially the same thing. Do you think I'm saying something different?
Kinda. Because I'm trying to tell you the point that, like, we should not
Well,
be
when I
getting
s-
caught up
when
in the
he-
legalness of this. Like, it's not a legal problem. They're making it a legal
Well,
problem.
he talked about it as a legal problem. He's saying, can anybody show me what he said?
Yeah.
And well, I mean the same thing when I said, well, let's see what the government can come up with. And then, if they don't come up with anything, then I will say, oh, they have nothing. I've also agreed.
but they took him away already. Like,
Yeah.
that-
Well, I agree with that. That's very harsh. They didn't take him out of the country. It's very
They
harsh.
took him to a
take
different
Louis-
state, right?
Yeah, right,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
his wife, who's
Well, I
8
agree.
months
No,
pregnant
that's
here in New
something
York.
wrong. It's
Well,
wrong.
as Viva Frei said, the pregnancy is an emotional issue. It's not a legal issue. You want me
Okay.
to cry over the pregnancy? Well,
Yeah.
So again, let me just say, he was
it doesn't
expressing
help
his.
you.
Hold
It
on a
doesn't
second.
help you to focus on this emotional stuff.
He was
I'm focused on
expressing
what's
his
gonna
opinion
work.
about two different countries, not that are outside of the United States. He was not saying overthrow the United States.
He should have.
Well,
Well,
You could say that, Jose,
Yeah.
and it would be different than him saying it.
right.
I don't know.
Yes.
He went into the court and he said,
could.
I do love this country, and that's why I call out its atrocities. I would give him my citizenship.
Okay.
But-
So I've agreed that it was very harsh to take somebody away and try to get them out of the country before it's even heard. I've said that I want clarity. I've said without any prompting that I'm concerned about how this chills free speech and we need clarity. So, don't make me out to be some horrible anti-immigrant person. I'm not saying anything unreasonable. I'll swing more in your direction as soon as it's confirmed, if it's confirmed that the government doesn't have a case.
But it's concerning because they haven't presented their case, and yet they decided to take
That's
this guy
true.
away to Louisiana, and that's
I
not
already
a red
agreed
flag
with
to you?
that. I already
Yeah,
agreed
you're
with
right.
that. But
You're
the-
right,
But,
Jose.
but a judge ruled that they can't get what's the word? They can't deport him yet. So
Yeah,
they
because
have,
but the New York judge had to argue based off jurisdiction. The State Department was completely ready to get this guy out of the country in 2 days, and
well,
if the
who are
judge
you
had
arguing with?
intervened,
You said that, and I agreed. So who are you?
I'm
arguing
trying
with?
to tell you, you're like, let's wait and see what case the government. The government was ready to throw him out 2 days ago if the judge hadn't intervened.
Yeah, it looks that way. I agree.
Yeah. So
Now,
Yeah,
one more thing.
Two things can be true at the same time. One is that the government is not only wrong to try to get rid of him without any due process, and wrong in many instances too that are related to treating anti-Semitism as some sort of a crime, or alleged anti-Semitism as some sort of a crime. that can all be true, but at the same time, they could have a legal argument that might be stronger than you imagine it to be.
Now, let me just interrupt. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services has a section on rights and responsibilities of green card holders, permanent residents. Third point is all I'll say. Be protected by all laws of the United States, your state of residence, and local jurisdictions. So, it does sound like, it almost does sound like, therefore, he could be protected under First Amendment rights. Again, he's not even talking about overthrowing the United States, but anyway. I know that's not the issue, Jeff. I know. I'm just trying to look at, you were going to say it's not First Amendment.
I didn't understand.
You're saying it's not First Amendment, but that would be, if you're saying be protected by all laws of the United States, that does seem to be.
Well, Jose is going to get irritated that I'm doing this again.
Yeah, it's like the fifth time you're showing
See the last part?
However, the Secretary of State may nevertheless seek to remove such an alien if the Secretary determines that the alien would compromise a compelling United States foreign policy interest.
Wow.
Which in this case is, as Jose said, Israel.
Was this written in North Korea or something, or in China? Oh, that's
Right.
our laws? Oh, that's crazy.
So what are you going to do about it? Mock me for saying something you don't think is relevant,
This is a fundamental cultural
or articulate some kind of a strategy to be effective?
Well, first
What's
of all,
gonna be more
people should look on. Like, here's what I think: everybody should be calling and intervening and calling their senators. That's just like a baseline thing. Although, actually, I think Morgan, you told me that a friend of yours tried calling your senator.
Yeah, I mean, it's very disturbing. I tried to call as well. Of course, they didn't answer. But she said that she voiced her concerns. Basically, said even very diplomatically, it was just like, we might not see eye to eye on this conflict, but the fact that this targeting is happening at this person over free speech really alarms me, and I wish that you would make a statement. And the aide comes back to her and he says, well, we've taken a note that you have advocated for a terrorist. And
Look, I mean, again, if they're using this to try to distance themselves from the fact that they were negotiating with Hamas, which I have defended the Trump administration for doing that, because no administration has ever tried to negotiate with them to fix anything in the Middle East. That is to be lauded by the Trump administration. I don't care what people say. Are they coming under attack, and is this by that? I think it's possible. That is certainly possible. We're in those kinds of times. These are revolutionary times. Things are going to be absolutely wild and crazy.
Well, see, Alicia,
That
you're
law
missing
should
one of
not
my-
exist.
You're
Oh,
missing
no.
one of my points, Alicia. I think I may change my name to Jeff, because I really want to get equal footing with Alicia.
Are you drinking wine, Morgan?
She is.
I am.
What are you drinking,
good.
by the way, Morgan? Can I interrupt a second, Jeff?
Excuse
It's
me
Josh
for
Sellers.
talking while you're interrupting. I apologize.
Yes. What is it? What is it?
Josh, the
Oh, okay,
the-
Josh. Sure. I know
yeah,
Josh. I know Josh. Good. All right.
good guy.
Go ahead, Jeff. Back to you.
No, Alicia, you're missing one of my points, which is that if the law is unconstitutional, then that should be the argument. You can't ignore it.
Should I keep that up? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You
mean,
might have
or-
to thank Khalil. You might actually get this law revoked, because showing that it is unconstitutional.
Well, maybe. Yeah. That's what I mean. You see what I mean?
Illegal.
Are you beginning to warm up to my point of view that it's relevant, and I'm not a terrible person for thinking
No,
that?
But-
no one said you were a terrible person. I just think that
No, not in
there's a
those many
larger
words,
thing
but that's
happening.
Jose's whole attitude. He thinks I'm a terrible person.
I haven't even had any wine yet. You want to know what I really think? No, I'm just kidding.
But again, Morgan, you were not on. I actually quoted from a 1945 Supreme Court ruling of an immigrant who was arrested for and was going to be deported because he was called a communist, which he said he was not, and he was allowed to stay in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to that.
So-
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, during the founding of this country, we were all technically immigrants.
Yeah, but we didn't have a constitution then.
Yeah, it's okay, but like, it wasn't written in the sense that everyone who's born here, or like an actual citizen here, just is dedicated those rights. It was
No,
it
they
was-
were all troublemakers. Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, to basically
They were
side
criminals.
with the state and saying that, they may have an argument here. I think it's
How-
beside the point.
How about this? How about this? Maybe the
Hold on,
argument
let
you
her
can
finish.
Oh,
Let
okay,
her
all right. Go
No,
ahead, Morgan.
you
Sorry. No,
say
go
you
for
gotta-
it. Go for it. You talk.
You said it's beside the point. It's beside the point. And what is the point that it's beside?
That it's trying to chill free speech. I mean, I think that people like us who are very principled, we spoke out about the basically attacking of the January Sixers that, were just there voicing their opinion. And then, we got to think back when Donald Trump was in office and you had the BLM movement, where kids were basically who had opposing views were being chased off campus. You had the president basically fortify free speech with an executive order. He didn't censor it and say that, some kids are feeling terrified. so we got to protect those kids that their feelings are hurt. It was, let's broaden free speech because that's what this country's foundation is on. And that's what we're proud of. And so where is this kind of 180 coming from where now we're protecting the feelings of some people who have an allegiance to a foreign state?
Right. Well, I said what you said even more strongly than you did. You said they're trying to chill free speech. I said they are chilling free speech. We need some clarity on this. This is hanging over people's heads, what they can say that could be turned into some sort of a crime, and that's not good.
But when you say, well, we have to wait to see what the case the government makes, it's like, come on, if you're not seeing what's happening, they would have made the case already, and actually
you got yourself on the back for seeing more clearly than what the rest of us see, but I'm still focused on how is it going to be resolved. There's also another issue, and I'm not an expert to speak about it, but I know that it's relevant, is the laws pertaining to the funding of schools. And what you have to worry about, but maybe you won't because you just want to pat yourself on the back, is that there are anti-discrimination laws, and funding can be withdrawn from schools if they aren't protecting people who are entitled to this sort of anti-discrimination protection. So that's going to be relevant.
Well, quite frankly, any so-called Ivy League school or upper school is only intelligence agency recruitment centers. I will die on that hill. I don't
So
care.
So let me ask you in that regard.
Funded. I don't care.
But the majority of schools get federal funding. So it's not about just the Ivy League. So, the ACLU, a formerly great organization, now a terrible organization, is just screaming about the First Amendment. I recommend looking at FIRE, the freedom. I can't remember what the acronym stands for. They're what the ACLU should be, and one of their people was interviewed by Matt Taibbi today. Very
Foundation
nuanced.
for Individual Rights and Expression.
What is the first word for the
Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression.
Right. And their whole focus for years has been censorship problems at schools. That was originally their whole reason for being for many years. Past couple of years, they've expanded it to free speech issues in general. Very nuanced, great analysis by this guy. And they're not coming from the point of view where they want to stifle this people or they're against immigrants or anything like that.
Did you say they have a view on this particular issue?
Yeah, that's what Matt Taibbi just interviewed the guy today.
Ah, interesting. Well, because we're talking about this, we should also talk about what happened at Barnard College because of what you just brought up, Jeff, which I just put on the screen. This is from the Columbia Spectator. So one of the, I guess, universities under the Columbia banner is Barnard College, which is a women's college because the Maine University did not allow women to get undergraduate studies or something like that. So anyway, there were students there doing a sit-in for the Palestinian cause. They were pro-Palestine protesters, and the university called in a bomb threat. The administrators called in a bomb threat and had them all removed, and then they were all expelled. So I'm now very interested what FIRE would say about that. Of course, I did throw out this university situation here So here's what I said to you off air, Jeff, and I'll say to Jose and Morgan. Jose and Morgan might have seen this. There was a theory that maybe the university called in the swatting, so to speak, the bomb threat on themselves just to get rid of the students. Now, I haven't.
There was a theory. This is your
My theory.
opinion.
Yes, my
Yeah,
theory.
There was a theory. Look how he distances himself from it. And I said it's a terrible
People are
point.
saying.
Huh?
You're like, people are saying.
Yeah, right. That's
Well,
right.
I'm a people.
And it's a terrible point because, and I say that with great love and affection, it's a terrible point because anything could always be fake, but there's just no particular reason to believe it. You're right that it would be one way to break up the crowd to call in a fake bomb threat, but I mean, why assume that's what happened?
Well, the only reason I would assume that might have occurred this time is we're in an era where swatting happens. We're in an era where these demonstrations on campuses are being challenged. Are they legitimate? Are they terrorist activities? There's all kinds of things about this. So that is why I would bring it up now.
Well, the school would leave themselves vulnerable to calling in a false emergency report if anybody took this theory of yours seriously, if they can't show, well, where did the threat come from?
Jose, you're looking incredulous. You're like, this is bullshit, right? Go ahead.
No, I'm not looking like that. People were talking about solutions earlier. All right, well, here's one.
Okay.
We are forming an independent movement in the Bronx that is centered around my campaign as a vehicle, but one that's not going to be.
Wait, which campaign? This campaign?
That campaign, votevega.nyc. Actually, we're trying to reach a $2,000 fundraising deadline by tomorrow. So if somebody has $2,000 or wishes
Morgan, how much are you putting into that? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. You're helping out. I'm sorry.
How many zeros came before the decimal point?
I'm just kidding, Morgan. I'm just kidding.
But
we know you're rich, but you're not going to do it. So that's okay.
Here's the problem. We need an independent movement that's going to stand up to the powers that be that are not Donald Trump, because frankly, we see like the Adelsons can just buy access to the presidency. So can Elon Musk. Israel exerting its control over the United States. No. And the problem was we had these progressives like this asshole here, who we made a whole poster on, who just decided to kowtow to the establishment. And it's people like her that are the reason why we have this problem to begin with. But
that's Sheila, right? Isn't it?
That's AOC.
I know.
But here's the thing. I'm tired of waiting for them. I'm tired of them begging for, more support and more help. Oh, we can't do anything unless you elect more Democrats. Fuck that. You all suck. I'm not waiting. I'm just building it right now here in the Bronx. We're going to take down Richie Torres, and then we're going to show all of these faux progressives, all these DSA socialist types that you can have a real independent party, a real independent third force in the country that's not defined by any label, and it'll be born out here in the Bronx. And what'll happen is it'll spread nationwide. But it's here in the Bronx. It's the epicenter of what's going to change the entire country fundamentally. So that whenever something stupid like this happens again, like what they did with Mahmoud Khalil, we're in position to effectively combat it and not get caught up on whether or not this is an immigration issue or a First Amendment issue. See it for what it actually is, which is political persecution over trying to appease the powers that actually run this country, and be in a position to fix it and change it.
Okay.
Well, it's not going to be successful if you refuse to look at other relevant aspects. Once again, I remind you that I think it's fine the way you're framing it, but to exclude the legal aspect is a recipe for failure.
No, it's not. I mean, is it the reality that they're going to try him in the court? Of course. Because lawyers and the law and the system of law today is not defined by who knows the law better.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of who can bullshit better.
Well, law
Right.
is
So
not the same as justice. We get that.
So let's say that the Trump administration has a winning legal argument. What I'm saying is it would
What
be
does that
effective.
even mean?
That
Can
they
you
can get
let
rid
me
of
finish the sentence? What I'm saying is it would be more effective, instead of just saying, how terrible it is, the law doesn't matter, to recognize that the First Amendment won't save him, and to instead make the movement about pressuring the Trump administration to not do it, even though they have the legal right to do it, if, assuming that's so.
to stick to their guns
Yeah,
on the
that would be more
negotiation.
effective than just ignoring it and screaming about the First Amendment. Because, and I know I'm not blaming you for it, but by the same token, you've got to deal with this is what the activists are screaming about, and you want to get these people on board. This is your potential supporters.
Let me take what Jeff is saying one step further. How about telling Trump to stay focused on the negotiations and not be sidetracked by dirty tricks? I mean, in a certain sense, what you're saying, Jose and Morgan, this is like a dirty trick being deployed to knock the Trump administration off of the course of actually what they're trying to do to negotiate something good in the region. Right?
You mean the
Yeah,
guy?
I mean, I can see that point of view. I think that this is kind of like a token that he's given to maybe the Zionist element that supports him, even the people who are very want to the mass deportations, which the numbers have been very low this past month. So this might be like a token, like, yeah, I'm still doing something. I imagine that's kind of what it is, and it pulls your eyes away from, I guess, him speaking to Hamas, which some of his supporters may not like. They may see that as
not even his supporters, actually. People like Lindsey Graham, for example,
Yes,
people who are Republicans who are assholes, who want just perpetual war. They would not like that, and they'd make a lot of noise about that, or the International Republican Institute or whatever, or Raytheon.
Let me follow up on something that you asserted earlier, Jose, and I'm not at all saying you're wrong. I'm just not aware of what the evidence is. And that is that you said the Trump administration is at least somewhat motivated by having it been caught, so to speak, negotiating with Hamas, and that they're trying to divert attention away from that. Could you explain a little bit more about that? Like, how did you conclude that it was like some sort of a secret that they didn't want to come out, and how it was disclosed?
Well, first you have to look at the timeline of the leaks that came out, and also looking at it in conjunction with the fact that Israel then pulled the plug on Gaza in terms of its powers, right? So we find out that the Americans are negotiating with Hamas. I think this was a week ago or so. And this came out in like some obscure European press, right? And it quickly spread. Obviously, it was leaked. It was a leaked channel. It wasn't something that the United States put out. Like, hey, we're doing this. We want people to know we're talking with Hamas. Obviously, that's not what happened. These were secret back channel negotiations that were leaked. Now, who benefits from these leaks? Not the United States or Hamas, because it clearly, created this hubbub, like
chaos.
Yeah, exactly. So then Israel, in retaliation to this, is just like, you know what? Like, fuck you, Gaza. We're going to pull the plug on you. We're going to take the power from you, literally. And they plugged all the electricity. I was just watching a thing that Morgan sent me from Democracy Now! With Dr. Mark Perlmutter and Dr. Farrow. What?
No. Go ahead.
He made a
Democracy Now! Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, I understand,
Dr.
but
Perlmutter.
it
Go
was
ahead. Continue, Jose.
Let me tell you something. Amy Goodman wears like really expensive designer clothes, as like some subtle.
But it's
way of
always
saying,
black and gray. Anyway, go ahead.
I'm Amy Goodman now with Democracy Now! Anyway,
Tell us about, if I may mock her interview style, she's always saying, tell us about, hey, how about you ask a specific, interesting question, sweetheart, instead of just saying, tell us.
Well, that's something we can agree on, Jeff. Is that
How about change the name of the show?
finally,
What is
finally.
democracy? Now
All right.
we're talking about it.
All right.
What is
All right.
this?
We're getting to that part of the show where the wine starts hitting different.
Okay.
We're getting to the part of the show where I need to refill my glass. Where the hell's my bottle?
Go ahead, because I have a question to follow up. But go ahead, hit it, Jose.
What the hell was I say? Oh yeah, I was answering your question about how we knew this. So anyway, like the Trump administration, basically, it's like they can't create within the public image and also within their internal ranks that they would ever do anything like this that would give Hamas some kind of advantage, or that they would be dealing with Hamas in one way or another. And so they first tried to do some like PR spin where it's like, well, they're American hostages. And then this guy Boyler, who was the representative from the United States to Hamas, he's like, well, fuck Israel. We can do whatever we want. Like he said that not in those ways. He said, we are not a puppet of Israel. Then I find out today that he was let go. Like, what a way to prove that we're not the puppet of another country when you fire the guy who says we're not the puppet of another country. Yeah. And so, like the Trump administration has to maintain a public sort of view of itself, a public image that like we are 100% pro-Israel. I mean, look at the way that Trump pushed Netanyahu in. You know, he welcomed our real president. You know, pushed him in, gave him some nice food, took the beeper from him. You know, became very submissive to him. So, you know, in public, they have to maintain this pro-Israel image. In private,
okay. So you answered my question, and I will think more about it and look into it some more. But I would just counter that by saying, in general, Trump has always been like, hey, we've got to negotiate with whoever has the power. And I don't care if you call me a dictator lover or not. That just is what makes sense. That has always been Trump's position. So that's why I'm not immediately willing to embrace your point of view. Maybe there's something about Hamas that's different, but you understand what I'm saying?
kind of.
Kind of. What was the part
Well,
that
no-
was not so clear?
It's
like say with Putin or the North Korea leader. In those situations,
Mm-hmm.
Trump has been accused of like being a bootlicker or whatever.
Well, no, they
And
say he is also a
it's
dictator.
wrong to talk to these people. Biden wouldn't even talk to Putin, that sort of thing. And Trump has always been, what do you mean? Of course we should talk to people. They're the ones who are control.
Yeah, but that's
So
but
that
like
might be their position with Hamas too. That's
Well,
what
wait,
I'm
hold on,
saying.
Jose. Here's the thing I think to answer what Jeff is saying. The difference is comparing Trump to Biden Trump is actually trying to get peace. I actually do agree with Scott Ritter on that. He is trying to figure that out. Biden was never interested.
That's fair to a certain extent. I would say with Russia and Ukraine, yes, I am very proud of the stance and how they've conducted themselves in that arena so far. But with Israel, I mean, I got the Gaza Riviera plan, and it's not really hitting the way he thought it was going to, and then,
Well, I think it was designed to do what it actually did, which was to get other countries to come up with something reasonable, because it was so unreasonable.
Okay, I mean, I would like to think that, yeah. I think that the realtor in him would actually have liked to see that come to fruition, though, of, putting, skyscrapers in Gaza and owning that property, like Jared Kushner has alluded to as well. So, but I do think that, the mega extreme that he went to can kind of usher in some sanity through other countries.
Now, what about Thomas Massey? Can I just change the subject to somebody else who's protesting the Trump administration?
really, we're not going to do the one with the baton.
That's not the.
Are you being sarcastic, Jose?
Yes, he is. He is.
That's not an important enough issue.
That was good, Jose. Very, very, very good.
I don't think so.
That was funny. Yeah, but what about Thomas Massey now?
Are there any other things that you're going to mock me about that I'm interested in that you don't think is worth addressing?
What? I think it was funny timing, but
but what's underneath the joke is that Jose is mocking me for being interested in that.
Oh. Well, I actually mocked you at first, and then I looked at how many people were paying attention to it. I was very surprised, and so I rewatched the whole thing multiple times.
Yeah,
So
the way
I'm ready to
people
talk about it.
evaluate evidence and the way public opinion affects things and so forth, I think matters.
Actually, that is true because it's how people are shaped to how they think. by
I'm
media.
sorry, Jeff.
That's
The
all right.
water is hitting different. I apologize.
It's a little strong. Anyway, can we talk about Thomas Massey?
Yeah, but then we got to talk about the
baton.
track roll. So not now
Yes.
that you mentioned it.
That's what we do.
No,
I
we're
was
going
re-
to take
I
it.
was- you know what,
That's going to be hour 2, Jeff. Don't worry about it.
I was
We'll talk
ready to
about
blow off all the other topics since this was such an interesting discussion.
But you know
about-
what? It's also about the same topic. It's about addressing what the Trump administration is doing or potentially or should do. I have a big problem with a lot of the protests against Trump because they're like as impotent and stupid as can be because they don't come up with an alternative. They don't address policy or a solution. They're just like, oh, he's got Elon Musk, a billionaire around him. So now what Thomas Massey's saying, though, he's saying the problem is that we're still spending all this money on things that are not good. And Trump is trying
he won't
to
sign the CR, which maybe you can explain just briefly for people who don't
continuing
know what that is.
resolution.
And Trump got very vicious against this guy who's normally considered, a MAGA guy and who's also very well respected too.
That's right. And anybody that, in fact, they've tried to primary him multiple times, and he has completely laid waste and burned them down in the follow-up races because he is absolutely so popular. But it, on the surface, looks like he is siding with the Democrats to vote against the continuing revolutions and saying the Democrats are going to shut down the country. But he is making a different point, if I'm not mistaken, which the whole continuing resolution is to keep the government funded and all the different programs funded. And he's protesting the fact that a lot of these, what we're spending on, we're still not getting rid of. We're not getting rid of junk that Doge and others said that they were going to get rid of. That's what it seems like to me.
Right. Well, I'm assuming that some of the audience isn't familiar with this CR issue. How about you, Jose? Can you summarize it for folks?
Basically, they're trying to pass a budget bill right now that if it doesn't get passed, it's going to shut down the government. And Thomas Massey is like, every time we do these stupid budget bills, it's just kicking the problem down further and further and further.
Right.
And
That's what I just said.
Frankly, yes. Thank you, Brian.
They had the one in January, where in January they said once we had Trump's in office and we're a majority, then we'll actually do the budgeting. And then now they're doing the other kick the can again. And there was this very interesting video of Massey. I wish I had sent it to one of you guys that came when he was speaking in Florida, where he got a call from Trump, I want to say a few years ago. And he said he saw that it was Trump, let it go to voicemail. And then Trump called him like 4 more times. And then he finally answered, and Trump was like yelling at him, just relentlessly going in after him, how he doesn't go along with his bills, his budgeting bills, and he needs to shapen up or he's going to primary him.
Well, very specifically, though, on the continuing revolution, the resolution, the government is set to run out of money Friday night.
Yeah.
Great.
And I'll talk like Ryan. It's not my theory. There is a theory. There is a school of thought that it's not wise for Trump to suddenly turn Massey into an enemy because he's a well-respected guy who normally, you want to treat him as an ally. Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
Well, go ahead, Morgan.
I love Thomas Massey. I don't see eye to eye with him on every political issue, but I just love how principled he is. And no matter what, big man comes in the room, he is the one who does not move or sway at all. And
so do you think it's a mistake for Trump? Do you think it's a mistake for Trump to turn him into an enemy?
Oh, yeah. You see it like on his X account, there was people just flooding him with memes, support, basically saying it was a funny meme where I saw where it was like someone leaning down into Trump and was like, sir, he's actually well liked in the community.
Well, yeah. And he said, he also said, I was America first before there was MAGA and Maha.
Mm-hmm. What was that funny line he said about he's not going to cave like Canada? He said,
yeah. He did. He had a good. He said Trump
something
was
like the difference
threatening Canada, and he says Trump is threatening Canada and me, but the difference is that I won't fold.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Well, honestly, I was happy when Trump was negotiating peace with Ukraine. I've never seen a president become so bad in the last few days. Whether it's this with Mahmoud Khalil or this stupid temporary ceasefire, which the Russians say they're willing to accept. But then this thing on Thomas Massey, going after Massey, we're looking at this is one of the worst. It's probably a generational fumble. I'll put it that way. And also, Epstein files? Kennedy files? Kennedy files were supposed to be due a week ago. It's now it's the 13th of March. Now, I know Tulsi Gabbard said she needed more time because turns out they had 10,000 more files that they didn't know they had. I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, especially given who she was going to have as her number 2. This sort of Israel critic guy, and who just got smeared, to hell and back. So now he won't be the number 2 to her. But I'm not wearing my MAGA hat.
You know what we need is a podcast that's kind of like a weekly report card on all things Trump.
Yeah.
Who might have that?
Somebody's going to do that. Somebody.
Do you two know that we are?
All right. I'm launching my new podcast. and it'll be on.
Bull.
Well, you may or may not know that, no kidding, we are launching a new podcast very soon called Trump Watch, hosted by Scott Ritter. And each week he will have a different guest as his sole interviewee, plus an opening monologue and closing commentary. So that's coming soon. And the idea is just to keep track of the ever-changing, always eventful world of Trump and everything going on, and that will include both praise and criticism. I rest my face.
Oh man, that was
My goal is to bring the show to a screaming halt. And just say
You
something
did, you did.
That will elicit no response whatsoever. Did I
that
accomplish
that was awful.
All right, let's look at the baton case. This is a high school track runner who whacked somebody in the head with her baton, and she was just charged with a misdemeanor count of assault and battery. And the person who whacked her is saying it was an accident, and some people think, in fact, most of the people that I saw commenting on social media are insisting it was intentional. So let's take a look at this.
Says there's more to that video than meets the eye.
Everybody has feelings. So you're physically hurt, but you're not thinking of my mental, right?
Alayla Everett is a decorated athlete and senior at IC Norcom High School. She would have never thought her trip to the Class 3 track and field state finals last Tuesday would take a drastic turn.
They're going off of one angle.
Alayla visibly emotional because of this video from the meet. This was a 4x200 meter relay race, and she and a Brookville High School athlete were rounding a curve on the track when they nearly collided with each other.
Okay, after a couple times hitting her, my baton got stuck behind her back like this, and it rolled up her back. I lost my balance, and when I pumped my arms again, she got hit.
It appears intentional, but Alayla says it was accidental.
But I know my intentions, and I would never hit somebody on purpose. I didn't have to see a first video, second video, 10 video. I know 100% that she won't do this to nobody.
Her parents outraged at the backlash. The IC Norcom relay team was disqualified, a ruling that a local USA track and field official finds questionable. He says a play-by-play look shows that the Brookville athlete was running closely to Alayla.
If a person comes up on the outside, they got to be a full stride ahead of me before they can cut in front of me.
The other family spoke with the news station in Roanoke asking for an apology from Alayla, something she wants to give, but she says the other athlete hasn't been receptive, blocking her on social media, and instead the Everett family was served with court papers.
And now we have to go to a city 3 hours away that everybody hates our guts already.
They're assuming my character, calling me ghetto, racist slurs, death threats, all of this just because of a 9-second video.
VHSL says they are still reviewing the situation, and Portsmouth Public Schools says they will support whatever ruling comes from the league. Markeisha Jackson, 10 on your side.
All right,
Morgan,
so I'm sorry for boring you, Jose, but what I think is interesting is the way people
I wasn't
are.
bored. I was very much gripped by this drama. I don't think it was an accident, but anyway, go ahead, Ryan. You were going to ask.
No, I was going to pass the baton to Morgan to say something
Pass
about
the
it.
baton.
Oh, I mean,
That's the symbolic baton.
the ball's in your court, Morgan.
I don't know. The video was kind of like, it was choppy, so I have to go and actually
Grainy.
see the video. But I don't know. I was kind of siding with the woman who was being accused. I mean, I don't like the coach or the father who said that like you have to be a full stride before you cut into the lane.
Right.
And I saw like the replay, and it was like they were right on top of each other. I don't know. And then I feel bad that she's getting all this hate, and that's
Well,
just very sad. She's just.
Does anyone know if she's a citizen or a green card holder?
Oh,
That will certainly dictate my opinion.
that was definitely part of it.
Because different
So you
laws
just-
apply.
I already
so-
forgot what you said a minute ago, Jose. You said you think it was intentional or unintentional.
Well, I was mostly joking. I mean, like Morgan, the video was kind of choppy, so I really can't. Honestly, the fact that she went on local TV, kind of put herself out there crying about it, saying she didn't mean it, it was a mistake, that's enough. In my book, she like publicly shamed herself. She didn't have to. and I believe in the principle of forgiveness and agape. So, you know, we just forget who was in the wrong. Let's move on. Let's run a race. Let's get our citizenship. So, yeah.
All right. So you two are a bit uncertain about whether it was intentional. What do you think, Ryan?
I watched that replay about a dozen times, and it's very difficult to tell. And I could see that it's possible. One view out there on the internet, Jeff, that I did read said, you know, that they're training all this time to do something, and then she basically snapped and did something that was out of character for her. And that also makes sense to me.
That's possible, yeah. See, this is the part that I found interesting is how certain people purport to be about it. And I'm pretty uncertain. I think that makes sense, the theory you just said, Ryan, which is that she got pissed because there was some jostling. And as her father said, that when she passed her on the outside, she didn't really wait enough time before she cut in front of her. When you're passing somebody, you can't cut them off. And they did make contact, and she might have gotten pissed off about that.
Yeah.
That's possible. But what she said was she lost her balance, and she was kind of like waving her arms.
There was nothing that looked like that to me. That's the thing. Because it was, I've run races. Now, I don't run races like that, but I've run track races before. And, if I lose my balance, I'm going down. It looks like a wacko,
Well,
you know,
depends
all
how
over.
much you lost your balance. It depends how much.
It does depend how much, but it was just like one arm, you know? It was one arm. She said it got caught. I didn't see. I mean, it's hard because the video was grainy, like Morgan said.
Well, I didn't check every single comment on social media.
I went frame by frame on the video.
But I did look at a lot of the comments, and what I saw is almost every comment I saw with people saying, "Oh, it's obvious that you did it intentionally," and that's the part that I find interesting is the way people are so sure when I don't know, it doesn't look 100% clear. I like Morgan's response that it's a little hard to tell, and I think Jose said the same thing, and you didn't say much different either, really.
I strongly stated my opinion. That I wasn't sure.
Let me read a few more comments first. Let me read a few more opinions, and then I'll amalgamate them all.
Could you intervene at the lawsuit, something like that? At the case, the trial.
Well,
The
when I was
charge.
at the Tulsi Gabbard hearing, I did want to intervene when that one senator just like, will you denounce you know, or like, will you call Snowden a traitor? And like, I did want to stand. I mean, I was in like the VIP section, you know, I was there and like, but then I thought to myself, well, but all this is orchestrated. Like they know that this was coming. They know they need to. So like, maybe I shouldn't get involved in it. You know, so in terms of intervening at the law, probably not. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's not like I'm going to say like, you know, 5 words that the judge will hear and it's going to be like, wow, he's right. Mahmoud, go back home with your wife. Enjoy your life. We're reforming the law. Trump, you're nulled as president. We're bringing Joe Biden back. And, you know, it's not going to happen. But,
well,
you know, where the opportunity lies in general to yell at a judge, and you don't have to worry about contempt of court. I'm surprised more people don't do it. Is when the judge, if you do it like
jury selection.
No. If you do it like before court is adjourned, if you do it before court is adjourned, you could be cited for contempt of court.
Right.
But once it's adjourned, there's a few seconds at least that it takes for the judge to get out of the courtroom, and that's when you can yell at him, I think, without having to worry about it.
You know why they brought him to Louisiana?
Because they have really good gumbo. I don't know why.
I don't know about specifically Louisiana, but I imagine it's because to make it difficult that he's far away, and also because they think they can get a sympathetic judge down there.
Or is it a district circuit court or something like that?
No. Jeff hit the nail on the head. I don't know. He said it for me.
Yeah, that it's out of state.
It's out of state, and I think 97% of immigration cases down there in those courts are always ruled against the detainee. So
But I think that goes to what Jeff you're alluding to.
Interesting.
Like, let's listen to the case. Like, if the case is good, but where they stationed him, it really doesn't matter. Like,
that's right. Rocket
Well,
docket.
there could always be an appeal, and then it won't necessarily be in Louisiana.
Yeah, when he's in
Yeah.
Syria after he misses the birth of his child. he's gonna
Well,
have
they
to
already got a
defend him.
ruling that they can't deport him until it's resolved. So we'll see. I wouldn't
Well,
assume-
no, March 27th. They can't deport him until March 27th.
as
What
of
are they-
now, but there could be additional rulings.
and I would
I'm
agree with
ge-
you, Jeff. That's the emotional aspect, and that doesn't really help anybody. Or
Well, I'm with as far as emotion goes. I'm with you just in general that people should have a chance to fight it. Because you can't unring the bell. So I'm not sure how the law works, but I would not want somebody to be deported or to be removed from the possibility of challenging something before it's over. That doesn't suit me.
Certainly, what we've seen is only the court of public opinion, which
Yeah.
on all these
matters
cases,
a lot.
on-
I'm right on everything. I think if the world just listened to everything I said and did, it'd be a better place.
Well, you just keep talking, and eventually, I'm sure everybody will. All right, let's blow off all the other topics, even though we did tons of preparation. That's just the way it goes.
So, are we prepared to end hostilities here?
I was never hostile. Jose was
Okay,
hostile towards me. So
I'm asking for a ceasefire, Jose. Jeff. Can
You're
we
gonna
get
need a
that?
negotiator to talk between Jeff and I, and then a secret back channel to Morgan too. For no
Yeah,
reason.
Morgan, let's set this up.
All right, so Jose is at votevega.nyc. What about you, Morgan? Is there a way that people
there is
can?
no website to connect with me. No.
All right.
So any donation you would give to Morgan,
you
you can give to my campaign.
Actually,
you go.
Morgan is off the grid. She's actually
never even
using.
introduced Morgan. Really, we just brought
We
her in.
didn't.
Morgan Blythe is her name.
I like that
She's
way.
she's both a friend and a colleague, and that is it. We don't present her as somebody who's necessarily an expert, but she's very smart. That's what this show is all about. If we can, if somebody has an interesting point of view, that's what matters. Whether or not they're conventionally seen as like a cable news pontificator or something.
Yeah, you're running for mayor, aren't you, Morgan, of Greensboro? Is that
Oh,
right?
no. What were you going to say, Ryan?
Well, I just wanted to say there was one last question in the chat about is there going to be a government shutdown? And basically, lawmakers have until the end of Friday to fund the government, and the House has already approved it. Actually, one Democrat voted for it, so it was pretty much party lines except for Thomas Massey.
Well, Chuck Schumer just made a statement saying that the Democrats will cave and vote for the bill. in
Yeah.
the Senate.
So there you go. It is not going to be a government shutdown.
That's how
I'm
it's been
predicting
going.
it. I'm predicting that.
There won't be, because that's what they do every single time. They do the same thing.
Right, right.
Where it's the budget that has been lulled in for basically my entire lifetime, or that keeps getting added to, just gets kicked along. The only-
Good job making your bed, by the way, Morgan. I don't.
She's in a hotel in an undisclosed location.
Oh, you're in a hotel now?
It's got to
Is that a hotel?
be. Look at how balanced the pictures
I know,
are.
it
Everything.
does look a little hotelish.
Well, thank you. This is my design. I like design.
Very. I don't see any wrinkles in the blanket or sheets. Very tightly.
So
tucked in.
and actually the way she's off the grid, she has a little bicycle under the camera that she's pedaling to power everything.
Yeah, she has a really long Ethernet cable from wherever she is to my router.
That's right.
Like-
That's right.
Leagues long, just to get her
She's using Starlink actually.
All right, I'd just like to say that I forgive Jose and the audience for not realizing that America's Sweetheart is perfectly reasonable. So all is forgiven.
I would like
Join
to
us.
apologize to Jeff for drinking too much Maha water. I apologize.
Don't worry, Jose. I love you. Nothing can come between us.
And I
Join us
apologize for being strangely effeminate but very muscular, Jeff.
All right, Morgan, what are you apologizing for?
She has nothing to apologize for, but as Jeff said, tomorrow night, join us. Yeah, there you go. There
Here's
you go.
the evidence about
Are we
how
working
Ryan is
out?
strength-
That's me. Yeah, hell yeah.
You call that working out? I call it assuming the position.
All right, that's a good cue to end this.
He's always into the police thing.
All right, join us tomorrow night on Ask the Inspector at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and then we'll be back with another episode of The Whiners. Another milestone next week. That's episode 26. That's quite a milestone. And we love you. Thanks to everybody. See you next week.